The principle of compassion lies at the heart of all religious, ethical, and spiritual traditions,
calling us always to treat all others as we wish to be treated ourselves.
Compassion impels us to work tirelessly to alleviate the suffering of our fellow creatures.
To dethrone ourselves from the center of our world and put another there.
To honor the inviolable sanctity of every single human being.
Treating everybody without exception.
With absolute justice, equity, and respect.
It is also necessary in both public and private life.
To refrain consistently and empathically from inflicting pain.
To act or speak violently out of spite, chauvinism, or self-interest.
To impoverish, exploit, or deny basic rights to anybody.
And to incite hatred by denigrating others, even our enemies.
Is a denial of our common humanity.
We acknowledge that we have failed to live compassionately.
And that some have even increased the sum of human misery in the name of religion.
So yes, we have failed to live compassionately as a people, and the history of humankind has certainly shown that. But why? Because it isn't as if compassion doesn't come naturally. It's not as if compassion isn't innate. We all have a desire for unconditional love, yet the expression in many of us is dormant. That expression has obstacles. We are taught that there is scarcity. We are taught that there is lack. And in some parts of the world, we're taught that white is better. And in some parts of the world, we're taught that yellow is smarter. Compassion isn't always something that is talked about in the home or in the school. So in this moment, it is time to start teaching compassion, because that is the way our soul opens up the heart. It's the experience our soul has in opening up the heart. Teaching compassion to our children and re-exciting them about engaging in compassionate acts is what's going to transform our world. I mean, I'm excited.
We therefore call upon all men and women
to restore compassion
to the center of morality and religion,
to return to the ancient principle
that any interpretation of Scripture
that breeds violence,
hatred,
or disdain
is illegitimate.
To ensure that youth are given accurate and respectful information
about other traditions, religions, and cultures.
To encourage a positive appreciation
of cultural and religious diversity.
To cultivate
an informed empathy
with the suffering of all human beings,
even those
regarded as enemies.
The Unity movement is not known for its large works of community outreach, for large organized efforts for compassion. The Unity that I grew up in was all about the individual. It was all about me and my personal growth and my personal healing. And I'm quite certain that it was implicit in the Unity movement that if I could heal myself, then somehow I would find my way into the world and work to heal the world. But there wasn't that big outside umbrella piece that I think that Reverend Sky has really started here in this church. This week in our SEE classes, we had the opportunity to read the original works of Myrtle and Charles Fillmore, the co-founders of Unity. Charles Fillmore says, "We all intuitively know there is something wrong in the world where poverty, suffering, and sorrow prevail. We would not, any of us individually, create such a world. Whatever we see as wrong is for us to right." And he wrote that in 1939. Before that, Myrtle Fillmore wrote, "All things are possible with you, because you are here to let God express through you." And what wonderful work our church is doing with the children in Malawi, Africa, and the homeless people on the beach every Monday, and the people who are in the Gregory House program every Wednesday, and once a month going to IHS, and the Friendly Hearts team. And every time we reach out into the world, we're creating our own charter for compassion.
We urgently need to make compassion a clear, luminous, and dynamic force in our polarized world.
Rooted in a principled determination to transcend selfishness.
Compassion can break down political, dogmatic, ideological, and religious boundaries.
Born of our deep interdependence, compassion is essential for human relationships and to a fulfilled humanity.
It is the path to enlightenment and indispensable in the creation of a just economy and a peaceful global community.
Also on the website are a lot of stories. There's a place where you can add your own tale of compassion. I am going to give a stranger a smile today. Pass it on. A homeless man sat on the curb outside a coffee shop. He was dirty and smelled pretty bad. People kept walking by him as if he didn't exist. There was a great sadness about him, so I said, hello. He told me a story and I listened. Sometimes all you can do is acknowledge that someone is hurting. And here's a woman who was standing on her commute home and somebody came up to her noticing that she felt sad. And the woman said her kind words were unasked for, but incredibly reassuring and heartwarming. And it's the story of a little boy who gave his mother a flower. And more little boys. Waiting at a bus stop late one night in Nairobi, Kenya, I was about to be robbed by one man when suddenly I was surrounded by several street boys who hung out at the stop and lived in a slum nearby. They remained with me, laughing and joking until the aggressor left, frustrated. They saved me from harm. Today, someone gave me a cab because I was in a rush and had no umbrella. To see someone else be so generous and compassionate to me made my day. And that's from New York City. I was very young when I became pregnant. I was abandoned, became homeless, and had no job. Friends and strangers from the neighborhood paid for food and a place for me to stay until I could pay for those things myself. My daughter is 25 now. I am forever thankful. They saved my life and hers. Then there's a story about a gentleman who had stage 4 metastatic cancer, and he only had a few months to live, so he wanted to clean up his affairs. He sold his house so that it would be easier on his kids. And the woman who bought the house insisted that he stayed there until he finished his chemo. And finally, there's a story about Jessica. And this was posted 2 days ago. Jessica will die in a few days from a cancerous brain tumor. She is 8 years old. Recently, my 10-year-old son Jacob wore a tuxedo for her Make-A-Wish princess party in order to be her Prince Charming. He also gave a speech about how wonderful Jessica is and how special knowing her has been to him. These are just a few stories, and I know you have your own, because it is in us to be that outward manifestation of unconditional love in the world. So I invite you to close your eyes and breathe, because there's something in this charter that is ours to do. There is something in this charter that begins our path to enlightenment. There is something in this charter that is asking us to be a Prince Charming, to give a smile, or to give a flower. So in this time of holy and sacred silence, ask yourself, what is mine to do?